Welcome to the Woman Up Podcast. My name is Natasha BG and I'm your host. Today we have Kristen Russell, who helps individuals to transform and become their most authentic self, live their lives where they're meant to. Kristen, welcome to the Woman Up Podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm extremely well. How are you, Natasha?
I'm doing great. I can't believe that we're like 14 hours apart. And,
I know it's been a challenge finding a time, but we've made it. It's absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely amazing.
I'm honored of your presence. Thank you so much for your time. So, for people who do not know you, can you please introduce yourself, Kristen?
Thank you so much. Well, my name is Kristen Russell. I'm a transformational coach. I work with business owners and individuals, and it's really about creating a life that they absolutely phenomenally love. A lot of the times, and I don't know if listeners might be resonating, but for me, I created a life that I absolutely hated. I was in a job that I didn't like, and
Really?
I really followed what I thought society said that I should do and not what my heart was saying. So for me, I really help business owners to create the business, if that's what truly lights them up, or individuals create a life that they absolutely love, that's in line with their deepest purpose, and, you know, really doing things that give them deep, genuine fulfillment. So as I said, I work with business owners, I work with individuals, and it doesn't matter whether the individual wants a really beautiful relationship, whether they want to deeply love themselves more, or whether they want to grow their business. It's something that I can help them with in transforming those areas of their life.
And is that transformation is personal on a personal level, or is like business wise?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's anything that is going on internally for us is very much reflected externally. So, you know, if we, for example, if we judge ourselves, we hold ourselves back, in essence, we hold ourselves back in our business. So a lot of the transformation happens on the inside to be reflected on the outside. So it is very much a deep personal journey, which then gets reflected in their external world. So it can improve relationships, it can change their business, it can grow those aspects just as a result of, you know, for example, somebody putting themselves out there more. They're naturally going to attract more people that want to, you know, come and hang out with them and do some amazing things.
That's very inspiring. So how are you able to determine whether it's a professional issue to tweak or a personal tweak? Because let's say you're working with me and I expose a situation that I'm having in my business. How can you determine that it's a personal rather than like an information business wise?
Beautiful. A lot of the times, and most of the times, almost all the times, it's in relation to how the person thinks about the problem. And so I want to really establish what they think is the problem, what they believe about what is going on for them, because a lot of the times our thinking, our belief system, our values really are running the show. It's the way that our mind and our thinking is designed, is that we are operating from a hardware that gets kind of installed in us when we're children. And so I want to get really curious about what that hardware is for you and how that is playing out for you in your business. And perhaps there's a belief that is popping up that is preventing you from growing in your business. And so I want to really work on the internal thinking structures and the internal essence of you to be able to reflect that externally. So almost 100% of the times, it's an internal thing that's being reflected externally. So once we can shift the internal stuff, the external stuff shifts as well.
And what kind of response do you get from these people? Are they surprised? Does it come more like a confirmation for them? Are they just like outstanding? Do they accept the feedback easily from you?
Yeah. I think we're becoming so more aware these days in society that a lot of the things that we carry are our own personal challenges, and they get in some ways reflected externally. So I think there's a lot more awareness around being able to do the inner work as opposed to maybe 20 or 30 years ago when it was very much just systems, strategies, and processes. And of course, they still have a place. They still definitely have a place in business. It's our ability to work those systems, strategies. And if we don't have the right thinking, the right mindset, if we haven't moved some of the things that are in our way to work the structures and the strategies, we're never going to work the structures and the strategies. So I think there's been such a shift for people to know that it's the inner work essentially. And, you know, the way that I coach them, it's through a series of coaching questions. And from that, it becomes very apparent of what can be the challenge, what can be the block. So sometimes they may not have awareness in the beginning, and they will go through a series of steps or processes for them to become aware. And it's just done via the coaching process as such.
Nice. What led you to be a coach in that area?
Oh, wow. We've only got a short amount of time. This is a big story. Oh, my goodness. So my journey to become a coach probably started way back in 2012. So, you know, over 10 years ago, my first husband was diagnosed with cancer. And so after a few years of him really, really struggling, he passed away in 2014. So I went through a really tough time in my life. I went through a period of, you know, I became a widow with 2 children under 6 at the age of 30. And so it was a really challenging time of my life. And I got to a really low part where I actually didn't want to live anymore. Like I was in a really, really dark, dark place. Mm-hmm. And somehow during the time of me grieving and me fully withdrawing from life, I managed to meet my current new husband that I've been with, you know, for 9 years, I think it is now. And so he owned a business and he was sharing with me about how he was going to do a coaching course. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, I would love that. I would love that. And so within 48 hours, I was enrolled in a coaching program to get trained in how to become a coach. And naively, I went in there thinking, I just need to know all the systems, the strategies, and, you know, all the tools for me to be a great coach. Not realizing that I had to move all my stuff that I'd been avoiding, you know, all my grief, all my sadness, all the emotions that were in the way. I had to really process and move through those first because, you know, as I mentioned before, a lot of the time our inner world is reflected externally. So if I had to show up for a client and they were sharing with me some of their deepest things and I had sadness in me and I started crying, like it's not a great look, right? When your coach is crying and, yes, and the client's crying. So for me, I really had to become my first client and I really had to heal and move through the things that I was holding on to that weren't serving me. And so I went through a really deep transformation around, you know, really peeling off the parts of me that I put up to protect myself from being hurt. You know, when I lost my first husband and then I got remarried, I had like this wall where I wouldn't fully let him in because I was afraid of, you know, what would happen to him. Like what would become of me if something happened to him, and I don't think I'd be able to handle that. So I really put up a wall of protection. And so it's been about, you know, removing the layers and the walls and really letting him in, really letting people in. And it just absolutely lights me up to help people navigate similar challenges, not always like what I experienced, but just challenges in general, because, you know, we've all got stuff that we've been through. We've all been through stuff. None of us avoided that. Some of us have different levels of what we've experienced, some, you know, more challenging, some less challenging, but still challenging nonetheless. Doesn't matter what, you know, how you rate your challenges. Everyone has challenges. And so for me to be able to help people overcome things that are very big to them is very fulfilling and very rewarding. And so by allowing them to move through and for them to experience such fulfillment and joy in whatever they choose to do in their life, whether that's run their business, whether that's to be a great mom, great dad, whether that is to take up singing or, whatever it is that really, really lights up their heart, is something that I truly, truly love and I don't take for granted. So that's my really short story in a really short nutshell. And yeah, it's been such a journey over 10 years or so.
It's a short story that was enough to touch my heart. I was very moved by your testimonial, and because I can't relate about when you said having walls, and I mean, usually we put up, in my understanding or in my experience of what I've seen, is that us as women, we put a lot of walls over our heart when we got hurt. But what does it look like when we're not going to go deep in that, but I'm curious to know, with those walls, how were you able to let them go once you found your new partner, your new life partner? How were you able to open yourself?
It's a beautiful question.
Because you put your walls up, but you were not hurt in a sense that it's a loss. Obviously that hurts you, but it's not a voluntary act,
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And it's certainly not something that can happen overnight. So it's definitely one little step and process at a time. So as you choose to step into a future version of yourself, automatically that is going to bring up some form of resistance. Something in you is going to say, hell no, that is not safe. I'm not doing that. I'm going to get judged. People are going to think this about me, or I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm going to be able to fail. And so there's your first step to navigate. There's your first piece of putting the wall down. It's as you take the steps, you're going to be presented with challenges that are going to try and knock you down because you are hiding. Your wall is up. You're behind your wall. And so there's the invitation to peel a little layer and peel another little layer. And the more steps that you take, the more layers will appear. And so let's just be really clear to all the listeners out there. I'm still on the journey and will forever be on the journey, as everyone is on the planet. And so we never fully arrive at this amazing place because we change as humans. We evolve all the time. It's the human condition. It's naturally how we evolve over time. The person that, Natasha, you may have been 10 years ago is not the same person that you are now. And the person that I was 10 years ago is not the same person that I am now. So there's always going to be a next layer. There's always going to be an opportunity to put yourself out there more or to peel down another layer of the wall. And so I know that you said, how that might show up. So this is how it can show up if you have a wall. And so you can withdraw. You can run away and hide. You can want to be by yourself, or you can avoid conflict. Or it can be something completely opposite. You can always be attending to other people's needs and not your own. So you can just look after everyone else. You can people please everyone. And I resonate with this one too. Don't you worry. This was me. This is me, and at times still is. We worry. And as women and as mothers, especially, like, we are predisposed to nurture and care. And so it's within us to want to do that anyway. And so the learning is it's okay to take care of other people, and it's also okay to take care of ourselves at the same time. So it doesn't mean that it's a this or that thing. It's like, oh no, I'm only taking care of myself and I'm not taking care of anyone else, because that's what we call, it's one of the little blips in our thinking that, I coach people on, is that it's not black or white. It can be gray. You can have both of those things. And so you can nurture and look after other people as you are doing the same for yourself. And so, it can play out where you don't take care of yourself. You just take care of other people, or you withdraw, or you feel afraid and you think, oh no, I don't need to do that, or you avoid things where you get to grow. And so essentially what you're saying is I'm staying behind this wall and I'm not coming out. Doesn't matter what it looks like on the other side. I know I'm safe here. And so I'm just not going to put myself out there because I don't want to get hurt. And essentially what really we are communicating to ourselves, this is like a really gold nugget. I hope the listeners are going to love this one. Is what we're essentially saying when we don't put ourselves out there is, I don't know if I can handle it if it doesn't work out. That's actually the underlying message. And so the beauty of just doing the thing and working it out and building your trust is that you begin to realize that you can handle it when you put yourself out there and it doesn't go that well. And so the wall again slowly comes down because it doesn't matter. You know you're going to be able to deal with it, even if it all turns to, you know what, turns to shit. So there's so many ways it can play out. It's, you know, not speaking the things that we might want to say. There might be a time where you think, oh my God, I just want to say this. And then you don't, or you withdraw and you hold on to things instead of expressing them. So they're just a few examples of the wall. And as I said, it just, the way that you break it down is just by taking the step, navigating that first step, handling it, and then taking another one, handling that, and then taking another one. And then essentially I use this analogy. It's like a piggy bank, you know, or like a jar of coins. And we call it the trust bank. And so every time you're taking a step and you're handling it and you're navigating that, you're essentially putting a coin in your bank until eventually you've got this piggy bank that's overflowing with all these coins. And then maybe you'll take a step next time and it doesn't go so well. And you take a coin out of the bank, but you've still got a big, full piggy bank of all these coins. So your self-trust is still there. And so maybe it might be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Maybe it might be 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. You're still moving forward. And so for me, the journey has looked like that. Just taking a step, navigating that, and continuing to keep going.
That's lovely. I love that. And so it's so inspiring. I mean, accepting that the journey is never ending. It's always like a continuous path to improvement. So I think that's what you're saying basically.
Yeah, and I think there's this thing where we think that we'll arrive at this magic place and we won't have any problems. Imagine that place. Like, that would be lovely.
Yeah.
Essentially, it doesn't exist. You know, being human comes with having challenges. Everything is challenging. Everything is an opportunity to learn something. You know, we're always learning every single day. And so we never arrive at this magical place. And so if you're somebody that thinks, I just want life to be easy, here to tell you, it actually never is easy. Sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's harder than what it normally is. But it's always challenging. There's always something to learn and grow from.
Definitely. Let me ask you this, Kristen. What are some common roadblocks or challenges individuals face when trying to become their most authentic selves, and how can they overcome them? And I'd like, if I may ask you just to touch base on the ego part of the ego aspect of the question as well.
Say the first part of the question to me, just the first little part. What are some of the roadblocks that get in the way of our authentic self? Feeling like we have to fake it to make other people happy. There's one. Feeling like we have to be perfect. Feeling like we have to follow someone's expectations of what they think that we should be instead of what we really want to be. You know, for example, you know, you might have grown up where you were told that you had to be a nurse or a doctor or whatever it is, but you really didn't want to be a nurse or a doctor. You wanted to be somebody else. But, you know, in your family, that was what you did. So you just went along with it. And so essentially it's, you know, not speaking your truth and not saying, hey, no, I don't really want to do this. I actually really like this. And so there's one of those things. There's, judging ourselves so much, and that's probably another podcast. Self-judgment.
Hopefully you'll be back.
Yeah. So a major roadblock is our ability and our inner critic. And essentially, our inner critic is the smaller version of ourselves that didn't receive love as a child, or perceived it didn't receive love. And so it's fearful. And
Wow.
so it's really about nurturing that aspect of ourselves, because at our authentic self, we are playful, we are curious, we are love, we are not afraid, we are adventurous. But as women and men, but for women, we were told to be good girls, or, sit down and be quiet and behave. Don't be too loud. Don't sing. And I'm guilty of saying this to my daughter before I knew any of this stuff is, oh my God, stop singing. Like, your singing is so loud. So I just wanted peace in my mind because I was extremely anxious. And so we're constantly shut down, and we shut down that authentic aspect of ourselves, and we adapt our personality. We adapt who we are to try and fit in and to be loved. And essentially, that inner critic of ourselves is that child that really just wants to be seen and noticed and expressed for who she really is, or who he really is. And so when it comes to the ego is a natural part of all of us. If we don't have an ego, essentially we died. Like, it's a part of our thinking. And its sole purpose, I believe, is to keep us safe, is to keep us the same, it's to keep itself alive. And so it wants us to stay the same all the time. And so it keeps reinforcing the beliefs that we've created about ourselves and who we are. And so we need to just become aware of when we're being critical, and nurturing that part and that aspect of ourselves, and really loving on that part, and knowing that it's okay to speak your truth. It's okay to dance. It's okay to sing. It's okay to be who you are.
It's beautiful what you just said, because it brought me back to a memory of my childhood. And I was in the shower, I was singing out loud, and I was like free, and all of a sudden, my uncle jumps in and he goes, "Don't sing that loud, I'm trying to sleep." So I just can't reconnect with that memory. And I'm like, but I was able to work through that. And now today I found my voice, and now it's just to be able to use it right now on my podcast is one form that, that allows me to do that. So I really like that you touched base on that, and the childhood, the inner child that needs to be healed. It's a deep one.
No, it's a big one. It's a big one. And, it's important to acknowledge that our thinking and our programming that I've touched on in the past really gets set from when we're 0 to 7, like a really young age. And so essentially our caregivers and our parents have a big part in what our programming looks like. But it's important to be really aware that our parents and our caregivers also are passing down all they knew. It's what they were taught, and it's what their parents were taught. And so there's no blame here. So if, there's an aspect of ourselves. So for example, your uncle yelling at you in the shower, to be quiet. We have to remember that the people in our life are the same as us. They have an inner child. They've been told the same things that we've been told, and that we're in some ways sharing with our kids. And as I said, I've shared that with my daughter. And now when she sings, I just have to allow her to sing, because I know it's important to her. And sometimes I might say, would it be okay, sweetie, if we saved our singing for after we've eaten dinner, not so much at the dinner table? Your voice is beautiful. If it's okay, can we focus on, making sure we refuel our bodies and, eat our beautiful food and all those things. And you can still sing after dinner. Like, we have to really encourage that, but we have to give kids boundaries around when it's appropriate. And so for your uncle coming in and expressing that, he's just playing out what he was taught as a child and what was passed down to him. So there's no blame anywhere. We've all been programmed from our generations above all the way down to ourselves. So we have to be more compassionate and kind about to the people in our life, that they've also experienced the same things that we've experienced. Yeah, when we can build awareness around that, it's such a gift. It's such a gift because you no longer hold on to perhaps resentment or anger around particular moments that we've experienced.
Wow, I love that. I wanted to ask you something. I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck and unsure how to beginning their personal transformation journey?
Somebody that's stuck. I think it's really important to think about the person that they want to become. And so, think about their future self. And if they stepped into their future self, what advice would they give to their younger self, so their 7-year-old self? What would they say? When they've really grown into the person that they want to become, what would they then say to the inner version of themselves? So, for example, when I wanted to become a coach, I pictured myself being a coach. And at the time, I was so fearful. I was so scared of doing anything, of taking a step. I didn't even want to live, let alone know how I was going to navigate the first step. I thought potentially I could explode or something like that. It was a deep, deep fear. And so I did, okay, who do I want to become? Who is this person? And what advice would that person say to my younger version, the 7-year-old self? We're reparenting ourselves essentially. And it was something like this. Believe in yourself. You've got this. You're amazing. You are capable. You are lovable. You're beautiful. And so with that knowledge is what made me take a step. So connecting with the future version of you, and then what advice would that person give to the younger version of yourself? Because essentially we're really great at saying those things to other people, but we're not so great at saying them to ourselves.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So it's giving our younger self, I don't know if you have kids, Natasha. I have children.
Nephews.
Nephews, beautiful. And so what I say to my own kids, I really think to myself, God, I need to take my own advice. I need to stop being so hard on myself.
That's so true.
And so essentially it's, giving the message to the younger version of ourselves, what would that message look like? And it's, you can do this. It is capable. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for support. It's okay to take time out if you need. It's okay to have the things that you need. And so from that, it'll be very individual for the person, depending on what their blocks are. It'll appear to them what's the most apparent step that they should take, whether that's reaching out to someone, whether that's investing in someone that can help them, support them, whether that's buying a book, whether that's buying a course, whether that's meditating, whatever it is for the person, it's very individual for the person.
That's for sure. How can we accept, how do we know that we need somebody to be not a mentor, a coach, to be on our side on that journey? How do we understand that that's what we need? Because you just said we can buy a book, it could be meditation, but as for me, for example, I know that meditation for me, it's I have a concept of in my head that I would fall asleep. If I close my eye, meditation, forget it. It's a wrap. It's a done deal. I'm going to fall asleep for sure. But this is how do we understand that we need a coach?
It's a great question. And I guess it's very individual for the person. But if you are stuck in your own thinking.
Mm-hmm.
All you can see is your own thinking. Does that make sense? Like all you can see is you, essentially. And so if you've been someone that has been trying so hard, but you're still stuck, you may need support from somebody else. And we always think that we can do things alone. And again, that's still being behind the wall, just to give that feedback. It's still feeling like I've got this. I can just be by myself. I don't need any help. It's actually, you being very independent. And sometimes that also doesn't work for you because your own thinking can only take you so far. So the beauty of somebody working with you or reaching out to a coach or a mentor is that they can reflect back to you the things that you can't see or that you, more importantly, don't want to see. Your ego will prevent you from going there. It'll jump in and say, no, you don't need to do that. You've got this. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I probably do. And we think about Olympians, we think about, really successful business people. They all have mentors and coaches to show them the aspects of themselves that they're not noticing. So if you don't have the results that you really want, it's really important to reach out to somebody that can help you get those results for you. And again, that can be relationships, that can be growing your business, that can be having a better relationship with yourself. Really individual to the person.
I like that. I'm currently in that journey and I'm seeing stuff about myself that I'm like, oh, this is not beautiful. I need to tweak my. But I'm grateful for that journey. I'm grateful. It's challenging for sure, but I mean, I'm there.
Yeah, it is. It's challenging. It's always challenging. Not always. I shouldn't say always. Sometimes it's beautiful.
Yes, definitely. But we just want to see the beautiful side, right?
Yes.
Let me ask you, Kristen. What is your legacy, and what do you want people to remember from you?
Essentially, it's not really about me, if that makes sense. It's about them. So what I want, my legacy is for them to believe in themselves and to love themselves. That's essentially, I feel my entire purpose is for people to know that they're capable and they're worthy and they're beautiful and that they can be themselves and that's enough. Like that's my legacy. So if I can help somebody do that, that's enough for me. It doesn't need to be my name anywhere. For me, it's just about them discovering themselves and living their purpose, whatever that might be for them. And so, as I said, my legacy is just helping one person reconnect with themselves so that then they can be connected to someone else and to help them. And the ripple effect just continues on and on and on from one person. So an example is, I've done this work and my kids are changed and my kids are talking to their friends at school differently. And that creates a ripple effect. I have clients that do this work and then their relationships with their wives or husbands change. And then that changes their relationship with their children. Like it's not so much about me. It's just about the ripple effect of connection for people on the planet. Like that's essentially my legacy. It's for people to connect, to love themselves, to know that they're enough.
Wow. What a podcast show today that you delivered, Kristen. My gosh. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really hoping that I get to have you back on the show because obviously this was like, we could go on and I feel like you give a lot of golden nuggets and I want to thank you so much once again for coming.
Thank you so much.
So I'm gonna wrap this show. Thank you all for the listeners for listening for all the way to the end. And if you want to reach out to Kristen about coaching, her links are going to be in the bio. Reach out. And until then, woman up.
You are listening to the Woman Up podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please hit the follow button, share it on social media so we can send you a shout out. To get information on public speaking coaching with Natasha DG, reach out by email at contact@natashadg.com or by phone 514-558-5777. Thanks again, and I'll see you on next one. Until then, woman up,